I catch you after here or after the service?
Absolutely.
Depends on how long I run.
Yeah.
All right. Sherry, it went good?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was good. We had
They were in honor of her, I think, her grand.
Two more that weren't able to make it yesterday, but two more that'll be there in February.
Oh, okay.
And she let us know basically I'll call it the convention in January, is that what it is? That we all need to be volunteering at that.
They make you serve,
And-
yeah. It's free labor.
But she did say that y'all need to be getting up there on the altar working during the service. Advent's coming.
Yeah. All right. Let's. This is the last one of these for now. Nancy Oliver will be here next Sunday, and she's going to be presenting about different things that are taking place in the jails and in the prisons, particularly with the women, because that's what she does. And then after that is the Christmas market. And then what's after that is the Thanksgiving weekend. And then you're right into Advent. So this is it. This is the last one. All right. So we're looking at freedom of speech. I scaled it down a little bit. I went a little overboard last week. So let me pray and then we'll jump in. So, Lord, we ask that you would be with us in our conversations and that you would guide our thoughts. In your name, amen. All right. And I have the clock. They took the clock down, but then I couldn't see it. So I have a big giant clock, and I bet some of you wish that I had this when I preached. But I do have the clock right now. All right. So I'm just gonna shoot this out there. You can push back if you want to, but this is kind of like my starting premise. And the starting premise is no matter what political side you are on, we love free speech when it's speech that we agree with, and or that we're indifferent to, and we hate free speech when we passionately disagree with it or we think it's dangerous. Does anybody want to push back on that? But we're not there yet. We're just talking about how people view free speech. Like, we love it. We think it's amazing because we like what we're hearing. But then when we don't like what we're hearing, we're like, yeah, I don't feel like that person should be able to say that thing. So can we agree on that? Yes. All right. So most of what we call violations of free speech really are not really violations of free speech. I'm gonna walk you through, because there's lots of different examples floating around out there, and people are like, that's violation of free speech. It's really not. But we can go back and on all the examples you want to. So here you have it in the Constitution. It's in the First Amendment. I highlighted the part for you about free speech. I did leave off press. That's not to exclude press. It's just I just forgot to highlight it. That's the in the Constitution. And then you got free speech is the right to speak without government restrictions or censorship. And one person defined it in a certain way that I think is interesting as an entitlement absent a duty. And I think that's kind kind of a good way to look at it. So what he's basically saying is that you have free speech, but you don't have to speak. There's no requirement that says you have to speak on such and such topic. So you have the right to do it, but you don't have the duty to do it. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. So that's the constitutional piece. So if we move on from there, I'm going to bring you into the biblical piece of this. And the biblical piece of this, I said several weeks ago, if you don't understand Genesis 3, you just don't understand the Bible. And I stand by that. And if anybody's offended by that, then I hope that your offense drives you to read Genesis chapter 3 and to study it immensely. Because Genesis chapter 3 is where everything shifts in the Bible. That is the fall. And we're going back to Genesis 3, just as we have multiple times. In the book of Genesis, we see the story of Adam and Eve. God gave us free will. And here's the verse on it. You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in that day that you eat of it, you will surely die. Now, God could have created a garden in which he didn't put the tree in there, right? Like, we're all aware that, like, why is there a tree that I can't eat in there? This is free will. If God creates a garden in which you can't do anything bad, then you don't really have free will, right? So all of a sudden there's a tree that God says, you can't eat of this tree. And this is creating the idea of free will. Right in the beginning of the Bible, you see free will coupled with consequences. If you do this, then you're going to get this. But if you don't eat of this, then you get this glorious, glorious life. It's free will laid out right there in the very beginning of Genesis, chapter 3. He gives them the choice, which would include speech. The Bible talks a lot about speech. I don't know if you know, but the Bible talks a lot about speech, like more about speech than you would think. So we don't have time to go into all the stuff on speech, but let's just be very clear. The Bible is not silent on speech. There's a whole book on it, really. James is a lot dealing with speech. So I'm going to bring you into my starting premise or my second premise that I'm working with, and you can, again, push back if you think that what I'm saying is a problem. So I think free speech is a problem in a couple areas. And the first problem that I think free speech brings up is, I have the right to speak, which means that I can. And so people think that free speech means I can say whatever I want without consequences. And that's just not true. And so the way that I look at freedom of speech is, just because you have the right to say something does not mean that you have the authority to say it. And I think this is a very important thing that people have to grab onto, and this is where we run into problems all the time. Just because you have the right to say it does not mean that you have the authority to say it. Now, I'm going to flesh this out a bit, and I'll give you examples, modern examples, recent examples. I'll give you all sorts of examples on this. But just because you have the right does not mean that you have the authority. Your right only goes as far as your power to enforce that right. So your right to free speech only goes as far as you have the power to enforce that right to free speech. So I'm going to show you where this thing breaks down. And you're going to see that line in every slide that I'm doing. Your right only goes as far as your power to enforce that right. This is the main principle that I'm working with. So most of the time, your freedom of speech is hindered not by the state, but by other people. Most of the time. There are occasions where the state oversteps on free speech, but most of the time the state doesn't have to, other people do. And so I'm going to give you a for instance. Yeah? This is my own made up for instance. Okay? You have the right your right only goes so far as your power to enforce it. So that's the premise, okay? So you could call my wife a skank and a disgusting person. You could do that. I mean, you have the right to do it. You really do. You're not, I promise you, you won't get arrested for doing it. But you're going to have to deal with me. Now, I'm going to show you how this plays out because I'm a reasonable person. I really am. So let's just pretend that you do that. Let's just pretend, and we're going to take Rich. This is great. Let's just pretend that Rich does that, okay? I don't know why you had to pick Rich, but we're going to say that Rich did that, okay? Now I'm going to go to Rich because I'm a reasonable person. I'm a Christian, and I'm going to say, Rich, could you not? Could you please apologize to my wife? Could you go to the people that you said that to and take it back? It would be much appreciated because I'm a reasonable person. But Rich, well, he's not a reasonable person. And Rich says, no, I said it, she is, deal with it. Now, whether I can take Rich or not does not matter. What matters is I am going to make him enforce that. I will try. And if Rich proves that he has the power to say what he said, then he has the free speech. But if I knock his teeth out, then he doesn't. You only have free speech in as much as you have the power to enforce it. People will attack your free speech. Do you actually have the power to say the things that you are saying? Does this make sense? So you can say them, but you're going to have to deal with the consequences. And most of the time, the consequences are not the government. Most of the time, they're other people. So I'll give you a couple other examples of this. So your right only goes as far as your power to enforce your right. So I don't know if you know this chick, but sure, you can run around saying racial slurs. It's not illegal. You will not get arrested. You can go around saying all sorts of horrible things about people. You have the free speech to do that. But you're going to have to deal with the consequences of doing that. This chick did this on YouTube, and she got fired, and she got a lot of heat. What she found out very, very quickly was she had the right to free speech, but she did not have the power to say what she was saying. You're going to reap the consequences. So, again, you can do it, but do you actually have the power? So let's make it really fun, okay? Let's make it, I mean, there's no point in talking about this if you're not going to talk about this, right? Like, are we just going to pretend that this didn't happen? No, we have to talk about it. So everybody got upset because Jimmy Kimmel said some things that about Charlie Kirk's assassin that some people didn't like. Okay, so everybody got upset about it. This is the same thing that has happened to all these people. All these people did the same thing. All these people said something. Gina Carano was in Star Wars. Do you remember her in The Mandalorian? And if you don't remember, it's because she got kicked off of Star Wars because she put something out there, and they said, "Nope, you're done. We're moving on." Roseanne Barr got kicked off the show that had her name on it. like that's astounding to me. So the Dixie Chicks, you remember the Dixie Chicks? They put some stuff out there, and they got in big trouble from the country music people. Phil Robinson, as a Duck Dynasty guy, he put some stuff out there. He got kicked off. I think he got worse than kicked off some stuff. He I think he had some legal ramifications. Colin Kaepernick is a great example of this. So let's use Colin Kaepernick, and we're going to feed that right into Jimmy. Okay? Look, I don't know how much you follow football, but here's the truth. Yeah, this is the quarterback for the 49ers who was very vocal. Black Lives Matter is going to spin out of Colin Kaepernick and all this stuff. So maybe you know a lot about football, maybe you don't. But here's what you need to know. Colin Kaepernick wasn't very good at football. And because he wasn't very good at football, he had the right to say it, but he did not have the power to say it. The NFL can walk away from Colin Kaepernick, no problem. Now, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees, they would actually have the right to say it and the power to say it. And what you really want to find is those individuals who have not just the right to say it, but also the power to say it. So the reason that Colin Kaepernick can't find a job is because he's not very good at football. And the NFL is about money, primarily. It is the most greedy, selfish organization that has ever existed. Just try watching all the games on the NFL. It's impossible without you spending an exorbitant amount of money because they are greedy and selfish. Do you think that the NFL is going to kick out a moneymaker? They're not. Do you think teams are going to say, no, we don't want to win a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick because he's a bad person? No, they're not. They will win with anybody. And if they thought that Colin Kaepernick could deliver, he would have a job. He had the right to say it, not the power to say it. Let's have some fun with Jimmy Kimmel. All right, here's the God-honest truth on this, okay? If you grew up as a baby boomer, maybe even as an early Gen Z, late night television was a thing. What you would do is you put your kids down for bed and you would turn on the news and you would watch the news, right? And then when the news wrapped up, you would move to late night television, right? Does this resonate? Am I just making this up? Okay, so it started with Carson, and then when you get down to my era, it was David Letterman or Jay Leno. I was a David Letterman guy. Some people like Jay Leno. It's fine. Whoever you like, you would watch that, and then you would fall asleep. I can promise you, millennials are not doing this. Gen Y is not doing this. Gen Z is not doing this. Gen Alpha is not doing this. When you open up streaming and you open up all of these different options that are available, people don't watch late night television. Every single late night show is bleeding mass amounts of money. Mass amounts of money. Whether it's Stephen Colbert, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel, whether it's Jimmy Fallon, and I never remember the other. Is it Seth Meyers? Is the other guy? Is that who it is? I never remember who it is. But it doesn't, these people don't matter. And it doesn't have anything to do with Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. What it has to do with is you don't have the power anymore. Because your show is costing Disney millions of dollars every year. So when people start complaining, it's very easy to cut Kimmel. I think he just got cut again. He wasn't on Thursday and he wasn't on Friday and nobody knows what's going on. But the ratings are way, way low. And so you can go out and you have freedom of speech and you can say these things, but when people start complaining and you don't have the power, you're going to end up reaping the consequences. Now, if you have the power, like my illustration with Rich is going to kick my butt all the way across the parish hall. And he's going to show me that he has the power to say what he wants to say. But I'm going to make him show that. It's the same thing that you're seeing with all these people. Even Roseanne, whose name was on the show, did not have the power to say what she said. And therefore, she reaped the consequences. Now, if you have the power, you can say those things. Very few people have the power, though. Did I go through all this? Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's days were already numbered. It has been for years. When you're bleeding mass amounts of money, you're toast. So, what are your thoughts so far? You can insert Stephen Colbert. You can insert, yeah, Elizabeth.
Sometimes an individual doesn't have the power, but if they come together in large quantities, then they have power.
Yeah, and that's what got Jimmy Kimmel back, because he got canceled because all the conservatives got angry at him, right? And Disney said, well, we can't have that. And then all the liberals got angry because Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off, and so Disney brought him back, right? And so if you can gather up the power, but the truth is, but that power is very limiting, because the reality is that whether you're conservative or liberal, you don't watch Jimmy Kimmel. You don't watch Jimmy Kimmel. So when the ratings start falling again, it's only a matter of time until he's gone, because you can support him, and he should be able to say that. But what you really need to do to give him the power is support him by watching him. And we're just not doing that. John?
I think these jokers do it because they know that people will forgive and forget, right? And then they go back to normal, then it'll come back up again.
Yeah, and that works when you have the power. But if you say something that really gets you canceled, you're not coming back. And so, like the Dixie Chicks are just basically gone.
No, they're still around. They're just called the Chicks now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this is your Milli Vanilli moment. I see.
Not really. Not really. I'm just saying they got sued for something and they had to lose the Dixie, and so they're the Chicks. They just don't. They're not as popular as they were.
Yeah, but they haven't been able to get back. I mean, Colin Kaepernick didn't get back into the league.
But out of all of those, Roseanne's the one that she still does her own, like she has her own shows, and she has her podcasts, and she does things, and she still has a voice.
Well, she's America's mom.
She is.
I mean, she was my mom. Like I grew up with these great influencers like Roseanne and Married with Children. Those were the shows of my youth. Like Peg Bundy and Roseanne. Those were my moms. It's so sad. It's so sad. All right. Anything else before we move? Okay. All right. So we're going to move into problem 2. And problem 2, I think, is maybe even a bigger problem. And that is the idea that right means can. So here's where the Bible is really going to come in and lay some heavy ground. You have the right to say that. You have the right to be as much of a jerk as you want. Okay, but by the way, this woman here, I love her. I need her to win. She is as nuts as they come, and I need it. I've created. Listen to me. This is hugely important. I have created the perfect power couple. The most beautiful power couple anybody could possibly imagine. If you were to get these two together, it would be a beautiful thing. You have the right to be Katie Porter. You have the right to be Randy Fine. But just because you have the right to be as rude and condescending and unkind and gossipy and mean as you can does not mean that you should. And what the Bible is laying out is that even though they can be who they are, they should not. Just because you have the right does not mean that you should do it. And this is where the Bible really kind of goes hard on speech, is laying out what speech should look like. And it definitely should not look like what's coming out of either one of their mouths. And in case you thought I was serious about Katie, I mean, I really do want her to hang around just for entertainment's sake. But I'm not a fan of Katie Porter, I promise. So just because they can be who they are does not mean that they should. And I think that that's an important thing to look at. So the Christian is to avoid speech, and this is from a variety of verses, like cursing, lying, deception, filthy language, slander, any evil talk, tearing down. Scripture lays out all of these things on speech. It is very heavy in its attack on speech. Constitutionally, you are free to do that. You are free to engage in all these things. No one will arrest you. But Scripture advocates for using speech to build up and continually reminds us that speech has consequences. And freedom of speech comes with the responsibility. And the Bible lays that out very, very clear. And I think sometimes we lose sight of just because you can do something does not mean that you should do it. And so there's a lot of speech out there that although you're free to do it, it's not what is beneficial to you or to society. So why does free speech matter? We're going to go through 5 reasons as quickly as possible and show you what the Bible has to say on those topics. So here's the first one. It prevents abuse of power. Free speech generally has the effect of preventing abuse of power. Do you know who this fine-looking gentleman is? Please tell me somebody does. All right, so we got Henry VIII there. Disgusting human being. Not a fan of Henry VIII. But Henry VIII is abusing his power. When people get power, there is a tendency to abuse that power. And free speech enables us to check that abuse of power. You see this in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 11 through 17. And I don't know if you remember way back when, but the Israelites are looking at all the other nations around them who all have kings. And they go to God and they say, we want a king. And God continually says, I am your king. You follow me. You do not want a king. Over and over and over, God says, you do not want a king. Let me be your leader. Follow me. But they insist. And God's warning to the people is the king will take from you. If you read those verses, it's the king will do this, take this, take this, take this. Over and over and over again. Because God is warning that that is what takes place with power. So speech enables the people a voice against the abuse of power. And you can see that in Scripture. You can see it in our modern life. Anytime there is power, there is the tendency for there to be an abuse of that power. So that's one area. Another area is that the government is chosen by the people. And free speech gives you the ability to make sure that the people are choosing their government, that there are elections, that people have voice, that people can say, I'm electing this person, but because I want this. This is the world that we want to live in. Speech enables you to voice that. If you don't have free speech, then whoever's elected can just do whatever they want to do. And you can't say anything against it. And there are places like that. But speech enables us a voice. And you can see in Exodus chapter 4, the people choose Moses. Now, not always. They don't always like Moses. You remember when Moses goes up the mountain and he doesn't come down for quite a while? And what do the people do? Yeah, they're like, he's not coming back, let's just move on. And they go to Aaron and they say, he's not coming back, let's just move on. And Aaron doesn't say, well, we should wait like 3 days or let's give it some time or I'm sure he's coming back. Aaron just says, oh, okay. And then they go off and they build a calf. And you remember they're complaining in the wilderness. What are they complaining about? They're complaining about the leadership of Moses. They don't like how Moses is leading them. But ultimately, they choose Moses. When it really comes down to it, they choose Moses. So you can complain about your leaders, even the ones that you like. I know that's not something that we generally do. You know, if you're a Republican, you're like, I love everything Donald Trump's doing. And if you're a Democrat, I love everything Joe Biden did. But that's not real life. Real life is that if you're a Democrat, then there's probably some things Joe Biden did that you don't like. And if you're a Republican, there's probably some things Donald Trump did that you don't like. And being able to voice that is part of free speech. Look, I don't like what you're doing. Stop doing this. Come back. Let's do this instead. And the people have the voice. So you see it in the Bible. You also see it in our modern context. Freedom of speech protects democracy. It protects human liberty. And you can see this in the Bible in a variety of ways. The government should protect human liberty, and you can clearly see this in the Bible. We can go down, you can look at Exodus, brought them out of slavery. We're going to do away with slavery. Like, slavery is not a thing. We're going to have liberty for all of our people. Liberty to all inhabitants in Leviticus. In Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord anointed me to bring good news, to bind up the brokenhearted, liberty to the captives. Like this stuff matters. And the same thing in the United States is it protects our rights as human beings. Going on from there, it protects religious speech. And I can promise you that when your speech gets overridden, it will most likely be in the area of religious speech, because that is the most dangerous speech there is. And when they want to curb speech, it will be religious speech. So it is in your best interest to fight for free speech. I already said all that. Again, we are commanded to be proclaimers of the gospel. You can see that in Matthew 28. Go and make disciples of all nations. That means go and tell people about Jesus. Well, that means that you have to have the freedom to do that. You have to live in a government that says, yes, you can do that. Because there's a lot of governments that say, no, you can't do that. Or you're going to get in big trouble for doing that. So free speech matters in protecting religious speech. It protects free thought, protecting the ability to think and decide issues freely. And so you have to have kind of like a market of ideas where people are bringing different ideas. And you can't suppress all the ideas except for your idea, because that is suppression of free speech. And this is generally where you see free speech being attacked. We're going to suppress every other idea except for the idea that we like, and we're going to put that idea out there. But free speech creates this engaging society where we're looking at various solutions to problems and saying, how do we do this? Well, here's an idea, and here's an idea, and here's an idea. But if you suppress all the ideas except for your idea, then you're suppressing free speech. And so you can see this in Joshua, you can see it in Deuteronomy 30. All of these things are connected to the Bible as well, because free speech is a value that is pretty much universal. Like, a lot of people don't have it, but that doesn't mean that people don't desire it and would not thrive under it. But it is always the tendency of the powerful to do away with free speech. Freedom of speech restrictions. There are some restrictions on this, and we'll walk you through. There are 4 general restrictions on freedom of speech. So people think that you can say whatever you want, however you want, and without any consequence. If you do these things, you're going to run into trouble, like, real quick. So the first is defamation or slander. You are not free to do that. You may think that you are, but you'll eventually run into trouble doing this. The second is incitement of a riot, like yelling fire in a crowded place or bomb on an airplane. I don't recommend you trying those things out. So you're not free to do that. You're not free. Obscenity is not free. They use something called the Miller test to determine what is obscene and what is not obscene. This is the kind of blurriest one that's up here, because what is obscene to one person may not be to another person. Like, for example, let me just shoot this out there. With me driving around in Florida with my 2 kids who I have to explain, let's go Brandon. Like, that's not fun. Why has everybody got these? Or, all the crazy bumper stickers that people put out there with the F word and all these different things. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Like, my kids are trying to figure out, like what's going on. Like, to me, these things are obscene. Like, if you want them, keep them in your house. Don't put them on your car. But what's obscene to me may not be obscene to Sherry. She might think it's great. Sorry, Sherry. The fourth one is true threats. You're not free to make real threats to people. They will act on those. Don't do that. So these are restrictions to free speech. But I'll take it even further, and this is kind of where I'm ending on this, so I'll open it up to a whole lot of conversation. I do have to get Caroline over there. But there are 2 areas where I am particularly concerned about free speech, and I think that you should be as well. So I just shoot it out there. Hate speech, I think, is absolutely ridiculous, and probably one of the biggest dangers to free speech. I don't know if you're aware, but it's not kind speech that needs protected. It's bad speech that needs protected. Speech that you don't agree with. And so what is hate speech? So there's big push to, have such thing as like hate speech laws. But the problem with hate speech laws is the same thing with obscenity, is who determines what hate speech is and what it isn't. And so you can start saying things that you're not meaning as hateful, but somebody else takes it that way, and now all of a sudden you're in big trouble. What it actually comes down to is anything that's offensive gets qualified as hate speech. And the problem with that is if I'm having a conversation with Conrad, and we're having a deep conversation, I have to be able to run the risk of offending Conrad. I have to. And Conrad has to be able to take the risk of offending me. Otherwise, there's no real conversation happening here. Real conversations are conversations where we're taking the risk to offend somebody to bring about ideas. This is how real conversation takes place. If Conrad is so afraid of offending me that he doesn't say what he really believes, then we're not having a conversation. We're just being polite. We might as well just talk about the weather. So for me, like, hate speech is really problematic. I'm not a fan of it. I know universities have tried adopting hate speech laws, but there's a lot of people that want hate speech brought into, just universal across the board. I think you run into very big problems there. The other area where, and this you actually did see, your free speech went out the window. And your free speech went out the window when COVID happened. And that's just the reality. Whenever it really came down to it, your free speech was gone. And you can look at this in a variety of ways, but this is the greatest sign or warning that free speech is an illusion. And you have it only because you're not influential enough to make a difference, and they don't care about you. But when you get a little bit of influence and you start speaking things that the government does not like, and they will come down on that as quick as can be. So you can just go back and you can look at all three of these things. You were not free to question any of them. And there were entire YouTube channels shut down. There were entire Facebook accounts removed. People were demonetized, all for saying, I think it might have come from a lab. In which they've admitted that it came from a lab now. Like, yeah, there were people putting out there, I don't think masks are going to do it. And they got demonetized. They got deplatformed. They got removed. And this is all common knowledge that all of the sites have come out and said, yeah, we were told to do that. All of them. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of them. We were told to suppress any video that mentioned that it might come from a different source, to mention that maybe masks don't work, to mention that maybe the vaccine isn't going to prevent you from getting COVID. Like, all of this stuff was suppressed. So the idea that you and I have free speech, just we can say whatever we want, that's not true. And COVID is the greatest example that you're ever going to come across. Because when it really mattered, government stepped in and said, no, we're not doing that. So for me, I think free speech is an illusion. It's an illusion that you have because once you actually speak out, if your people right beside you don't suppress you, the government eventually will. But it's worth fighting for. It's biblical to fight for it. The Bible fights for it. The Bible says these are things that we should value and fight for, and they guard us as a society. So I think free speech is something of great importance, and any time free speech is being overridden, whether it's your party or the other party, you should have a problem with it. Because that's biblical. So I'll open it up. What are your thoughts? I said a whole lot of controversial things. Probably Katie Porter the most, but let's roll. No pushback. Yeah, Ken.
I'll go back to the basics. It says thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
Yep.
I think people have to use that as the basis when you do free speech. Because if you bear false witness against the neighbor, you're not against God.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Another good example of free speech and consequences is all the disciples. They went and then they proclaimed the gospel. They were free to do that. They were also free to die for it. So just because you can do something does not mean you're going to reap the consequences. You go back to the 10 Commandments, or lifting up free speech, but lifting up free speech with some railings around it. And the railings are your speech should be positive to the community that you're involved in, to the world that you are a part of. That doesn't mean that it's always positive. Sometimes positive speech is negative, like this is bad. But it's not to just tear down and to say whatever you want because you're free to do it. John?
It seems like social media has made it worse, like people say whatever they want to say.
It's way worse. Yeah. I mean, because it's the same thing. Like that. My example with Rich. Rich might actually be bold enough to say my wife's a skank and all that to my face, but most people won't. But you get somebody behind a screen, and everybody is John Wayne. And it's just like when people are in their cars and people are flipping you off and they're going nuts. That's because you're in your car. Get out of your car. But behind a screen, everybody's tough and everybody wants to push as far as they can. When you're face to face and you have to actually deal with people's emotions and how people respond, it's a lot difficult. It's a lot more difficult. Social media has really just made free speech a total total
I mean,
disaster.
it's not even so the social media, it's the way that people react in the comments, where they're not even seen. Like the words that they say unseen is way worse sometimes than what they say while they're
Yeah,
visualized. It's the, you know, the quiet bullies that are like just sitting behind a computer saying whatever they want to, but they would never say it in person.
Yeah, the comment section is always fun to read.
Yes.
Hate speech.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
No.
So, like, I have a sign that says Charlie Kirk's a martyr. And somebody else says, well, that's hate speech because.
Sherry, that would be a microaggression is the word today. And I was looking up microaggressions, and there's a whole host of microaggressions. And so if Conrad were to sneeze, and I was to say God bless you to Conrad, and Conrad is an atheist, that would be labeled as a microaggression in certain universities. Yeah, so I mean, you can see where hate speech goes off the rails, because you can't clarify what is hate speech and what is not hate speech, and it really comes down to the person. But yeah, they would call that a microaggression. Yeah, Laurie?
I think it goes back to just listening to, my comment has evolved just in listening to the conversation. It goes back to how any individual takes personally what they're hearing. If it doesn't align with their thinking, then it is hateful, or people have become oversensitized, or
some people are.
overly
You say something.
sensitive
I
to
said some people are
every
overly
little
sensitive. You might say
comment. I mean,
something and they take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
That's not what you're
Communicate just because you can does not mean you should. I mean, from the time you were little, just because you can jump off a bridge doesn't mean you should. I mean, but it just covers so many thought processes.
Yeah, it's
People have lost their moral way, or their moral compass.
I mean, for me, this is the main biblical principle that's being laid out here, is that you do have freedom to say things, but you, as Christians, you have a responsibility with that freedom. And too often, what we end up with is people saying things just because they can, and we really need to go back and figure out, like, what should I be saying? And what kind of language should be taking place? And so there's lots of examples of this where Christians just join in with the crowds. Whatever the crowds are saying, we're just going to join in and say the same thing. And although you're free to do that, what the crowds are saying, and it might even be right, but it's not the best thing to say. It's not going to, and I'm sure you know. I've learned this raising my two boys. I might be saying the right thing to my boys, but I can be saying it knowing that they're not going to receive it, and it's going to push them further away. It's not helpful speech. And I think what we want to do as Christians is engage in helpful speech. And you don't see a whole lot of helpful speech going on. So, any other thoughts? Well, it's been a fun series. I appreciate it. In February, we're going to look at Islam for 3 weeks. We're going to look at, and that will also be a very fun, controversial series. So we're going to be looking at Islam. So it's been fun. I appreciate it. And if you ain't been to church, go to church.